Richards trying to scoot in there alone. It pinballs to the crease.
Let's get it.
Oh my God! Here we go.
You're listening to the Street Bullies podcast with your hosts, Derrik.
How you gonna get it, Bobby?
John. Matt Casey.
Unnecessary, but totally necessary.
And Hoagie.
What's not to love?
Ladies and gentlemen, what is happening? This is Derrik with the Street Bullies, joined by
The one and only. I'm John. What's going on, everybody?
we are Mattless tonight. No Matt Hoagland, no Matt Casey. It is the OGs, your favorite part about the podcast. Let's be honest, all right?
Absolutely.
For those of you
my
listening
favorite
right
part
now.
about the podcast.
Right. This is how we started. I just something fun about just you and I, man. I enjoy it.
Just the two of us. Dude, before we get started, biggest disappointment today. So I've been craving Mexican food. I mean, for months, I've just been like, we got to get, like, I want Mexican food. And like, Kara be like, oh, I'll make enchiladas. Like, that's great. I want to go to a Mexican restaurant, you know, with the whole, like the whole shebang.
Casa Bonita, you know?
Sure. So we just haven't gone because it's not like, I don't know. It's not like my 2-year-old and 6-year-old friendly. They just want chicken tenders. And, you know, so it's like we always end up going to like a Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever. So finally, we're going to lunch at a Mexican restaurant. We spent a lot of money at IKEA because we're redoing the kids' rooms and everything. And then we're going to lunch. Talk about such a letdown. There is nothing worse than when you've been craving something for so long. We're talking months now. And it was like Chipotle plus.
Yeah, no.
And it was like the place looked legit. You know, you're sitting down and they got like all the drinks and the cans and, you know, the whole thing that they do. But the food was not good. And my stomach was so angry with me.
We have a place close to us I think it's called Fiesta Mexico, and like pretty good Mexican food. Like I enjoy it. We go there. I think I've been there twice in the past like couple months. Our friends suggested it to us. We met them because they've got a kid a little bit older than Sully. But back to your original statement there. Are you a Chipotle guy or are you a Qdoba guy?
I've never had Qdoba.
Oh, they gotta have them up in New York.
No, they do. Okay. But I don't really like that kind, like that quick meal kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah. But like if you had to pick,
I
you
guess
said you've never had Qdoba.
Yeah, but there's this place I've had in the city that's similar to a Chipotle. It's called like a Dos Toros.
Okay.
And that was better than Chipotle.
Oh yeah. Like I always used to get like slandered because people were like, "How do you pick Chipotle over Qdoba?" And I'm like, well, it's simple. Like Qdoba has queso, and they've got spicy queso. I think it's like Diablo queso or something like
so
that.
You meant to say you pick Qdoba over Chipotle.
I would 100% take Qdoba. Yeah. Now, there's a place here where I live called Robberitos, and if anybody here is listening and knows Robberitos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Fantastic food. I'm not going to say
freezer burritos, just frozen raw burritos.
Oh, dude, the burritos are fantastic. Yeah. Now, it's not like I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, Robberitos is authentic Mexican cuisine.
Casey would be having a fit right now at this conversation. Guys, get on task.
Neanderthals. He'd probably chime in, though. There's probably a place up where he lives where he's like, this place has the best burritos.
I mean,
my high noon, enjoy a burrito from here.
On vacation.
Right.
Yeah, telling me this is only his second vacation this summer. I'm like, man, this is your second vacation this week.
Right? He's on vacation all the time. Meanwhile, Hoagie's over there like hacking up a lung about to die. We can barely get a response from him in the group chat. Either way, though, we resume Frostwatch 2023 here with no real update, just aside from some comparables, what the guy might be looking at contract-wise. Let's just right now assume that the two sides are far apart on years, on AAV. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know. I'm just going to sit here and give you what I think. I'm assuming John will as well. But interestingly enough, not really that interesting, there's no deal to be reached right now.
Right.
And I can only assume that it's based off of the money. I'm sure Frost wants more than what the Flyers are willing to shell out. I know that the Flyers right now would have, let's say, right now, their cap space is at 2.9, just a shade under $3 million. I think 2 weeks ago I said that was more than enough. Should be enough.
Right.
Maybe it's not. What do you think Frost is looking for in his contract here?
I mean, I'd kind of love to just be in his head to see, because he kind of comes off as someone who thinks he's worth more than he is. You know, don't you kind of catch that vibe from him?
100%.
I think it's term. I think that he wants another 1-year deal.
Okay.
And I think that the Flyers want to be like, no. Like, if we're gonna commit to you, we're gonna, do the 2-year bridge or whatever it is. But it's like, you've already gotten the show me contract. Like, this is a little bit more than that. I don't see a world where this guy is worth $3 million.
Not right now.
No. But even like they have 2.9, right?
Right.
So he would have to make, say if this was a 2-year contract, there's no way I'm thinking this guy's making $3 million a year for the next 2 years.
I could see a world where he could. And the reason behind that is you look at Scott Lawton's contract, and no, I'm not sitting here comparing the players.
Right.
I think they're two completely different players. But for what Frost could potentially continue to bring to the table versus what we have in regards to Scott Lawton, Frost could see that and say, I think I'm a better player than Scott Lawton, but I'll still take 3 or maybe 3.25. I don't know.
Right.
He's probably also looking at a guy like Garnet Hathaway, who just got 2.375 and is like, I'm definitely better than him.
Yeah,
so
he's
like
also an established commodity.
Right. Both of the players are in Lawton and Hathaway.
Right.
And like, he might even be looking at Noah Cates, same exact age at 24, just got a 2.625. So like, he might see himself as a better player than the organization does. Right or wrong, not here to debate that. However, I can't help but think he would take the term that the Flyers want to give him if he gets the money that he wants. Like, who wouldn't, first and foremost? But like, 2 years, I feel like is a fair enough compromise. I'd like him maybe a little bit longer.
Well, I think it all has to do with that walks him to UFA status thing, right? So I think that if is it beyond 2 years and he's no longer under team control,
that's what I'm confused about, because Wade Allison is going to be an RFA after this upcoming season, and he'll be 26. So like 2 years might still get him into RFA. I just don't know. Like, I'd have to really refresh myself when it comes to the rules here. But I mean, hell, Noah Cates, he'll be an RFA after the 2025 season,
right?
Which is a year past. Well, he'll be 26 then as well. So it might just be an age thing. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I also wonder, and this is complete speculation. It's August. We need something to talk about, kind of discussion. But like, I wonder if there's a Tortorella factor to this too.
There's got to be.
Where he's like, listen, I'm not putting him on my second line to start the year. Sure. So based off of like what he sees Morgan Frost as might also affect what the team is willing to pay him, because you have to consider where Tortorella sees him in the roster.
Tortorella might not have a chance, or might not have a say in that, though, depending on how the roster unfolds.
I know, but
I get your point.
Yeah, I mean, and kind of like look at what's been going on the past few months or whatever. Like, he clearly has a voice on how this team is constructed.
Oh, 100%.
I don't think he's the be all end all. I don't think Danny Briere is just trying to like do Tortorella's bidding. But sure. I think like when you're considering paying a player, you want to talk to your coach and be like, where do you see him in the lineup? And if Tortorella's like, I don't really trust him right now.
Sure.
I don't know.
I mean, the way I look at it, like this roster has started to build itself up from the bottom, where Poling is likely going to be your 4C. Ideally, Lawton is your 3C. Then you've got Noah Cates, Morgan Frost, and then the impending possible return of Sean Couturier.
Right.
If Couturier comes back, Frost might be the odd guy out because
I
they're
think
going
you put Lawton on the wing if that's the case.
Yeah, but then Frost is your 3C, likely, just because I think they're going to want to roll with Cates at 2C, just because he played first line minutes and played pretty well.
It also depends on who's on his wing. I think that's a conversation for a different time, too.
We'll get into that before the season, starts. We'll probably give line projections and things like that. There might be another player or two added to the roster between now and then. Who knows? But I don't know if I think a lot of it hinges on Couturier. If he comes back, someone gets moved to the wing, and are they going to want to move Lawton to the wing, or are they going to want to move potentially Frost to the wing?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think common sense would tell you Lawton should go to the wing.
Right.
I think he's better on the wing. I think he would be a great third line winger, and then that way Frost and Lawton can stay on the same line, plug in whoever on the other wing, and you're set. But right now, it's all up in the air. Who knows? Yeah,
I'm sticking to give him the Tippett contract. Well, whatever it was, 2 years, 1.75 per, something like that. 1.5.
1.5. Yeah, 2 years, 1.5. That takes him again into restricted free agency. Poling will be a restricted free agent after this year. So nice little reclamation projects there. But one thing that is set in stone now, the Flyers dished out a contract extension relatively early, which is kind of interesting. He still had a full year on his deal, but Samuel Ersson is going to be locked up here for the next 3 seasons, this one upcoming included. He'll be making $1.45 million for the 2024-25 season, as well as the 25-26 season. A lot to unpack here. Because a lot of people have their minds made up. This is a move that was made as a contingency plan in case things go south with Carter Hart and the Hockey Canada investigation. I have my own thoughts about it, as I'm sure you do. So hit me with your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I have some big thoughts regarding the Hart thing that I guess we could just kind of get into. But before that, I think that this just shows trust in Ersson. I think that they think of him highly, clearly, to sign him to an extension a year before he might be the backup. But I do think that, this is showing that the Flyers are planning for life without Carter Hart. I'm not saying because of the Hockey Canada situation. Remember, he's a UFA after this year, right?
He is. No, I'm sorry. I think he's an RFA, actually. Hart will be an RFA after this upcoming season.
Okay. Well, I still think that that aspect of it has something to do with it, where it's maybe there's been talks about his desire to stay in Philadelphia, right? Maybe this current, organization doesn't think as highly of him long-term, right? Or it's willing to pay him what he's going to be going on the open market, could go on the open market. So I do think that the Ersson signing, the draft picks, all of this is preparing for after Carter Hart, in my mind.
After Carter Hart.
Yeah.
Something I didn't think we would ever discuss on this show. I'll be honest.
Right. And yes, it's premature. And I'm not saying that Ersson should go in and be the next, is going to go in and be the Carter Hart replacement this season. Right. But I just think that when you look at the amount of attention that this organization has been giving to goalie, when you quote unquote have your franchise goaltender, there's something there. Right.
Yeah. I think, and I'll paraphrase just because I couldn't recite it word for word, but Frank, the one guy on Twitter that gives everybody crap, which I respect him, he brought up an actual pretty good point, and I think I agree with him. I think this deal was more merit-based than it was a contingency plan. It just so happens that this situation's ongoing.
Right.
So like they both, I'm sure, tie in together. However, Urson was going to get this contract, whether or not Hart was involved or not.
Yeah.
Whether, again, still
Agree.
we don't know.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I want to make that clear. We still don't know if Hart was involved or not. Like that's not public knowledge right now.
Right. And my thought process, Derek, isn't even including the Hockey Canada situation. I'm just thinking of like, if you take that away for a minute,
right?
I still think that the team is like, okay, we're setting this up just in case there is no future with Carter Hart.
Right. And that future, whether or not he's going to be the franchise goalie, whether he gets suspended, yeah, that all plays into that. For me, at least. I just, when you're making a decision like this too, you have to weigh every variable. Right. I mean, you have to pretend that maybe he is involved and you got a plan for the future without him. You have to pretend that he won't be involved, and boom, you likely have a decent backup at that point in time because Sandstrom's going to be gone. You would have to assume, I mean, Peterson's here for the next 2 years. I don't know.
Right. I guess he could be a buyout candidate or whatever after this year, but
if they've got the slot, I mean, Christ, they're going to be, well, Lindblom will be off the books after this year, so that's a positive. But I mean, I don't know. I'm happy Urson signed the extension. I'm glad that he's with the team now for another 2 years on top of the year this upcoming year. I think that there is a future with this kid,
right?
But I do think that it does kind of hinge on Hart. Like if he comes out of the gates this year and plays an incredible season where he's posting like a 9.2 save percentage, a 2.7 goals against, like, okay, let's keep riding with him. Let's see how this goes. If he comes out, sputters like he has, shows inconsistency like he has, like it might not be a bad idea to see what Urson can do with the reins for a little bit. Like we've seen the injury history too. Hart isn't always the healthiest guy out there. So it gives Urson an opportunity to potentially win the team, win the starting gig, see how it goes. I'm not going to get ahead of myself here, but like, I don't want to fall into the same rabbit hole and the same position in which we were in when Hart came up. And everybody's like, here's our guy. He's here forever. He's going to be the best goalie we've ever seen. And here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just think that, like, look at everything that this team has done this summer.
Mm-hmm.
They've extended Urson. They signed Kolosov, right? They're like, there's still this little bit of hope that maybe Fedotov shows up. They draft 2 goalies. And I know we're not going to see these guys until 2026, 2027 or whatever.
Right.
2, though, in the second and third round. Like, yes, that doesn't mean that, like, all of a sudden Carter Hart's going to be traded tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, I just don't think you do all of these things if you're looking at a long-term future with him.
Right. But like, and again, like I hate to keep tying it back to it, but like, I feel like those moves are indicative of something in regards to that investigation. Like,
yeah, but I don't know if they know it, if they could know anything.
I don't either. Now, according to people, Cam and Strick, their podcast, they're saying that they've got the names and this and that. I have yet to hear it. I've yet to see any type of indication of anybody involved with this investigation, who was in the room, who did the deed and should be suspended, whatever. Like, we don't know, and we won't know until they're made public.
Right.
But like something of this magnitude, you need to prepare for. Like, absolutely. You can't just be left out in the wind and then all of a sudden suspensions are handed down and Carter Hart's one of them. And you're like, oh, well, shit, what are we going to do?
Well, for all we know, all this news could break. Carter Hart's name could be cleared and he could be traded the next day. Like,
that's an option as well.
Like there could be a deal that's in place where it's like, okay, as long as his name's cleared.
Right. I'd be very interested to see what that deal looks like. I'd be very interested. I hate to, like, I'm not in any way, shape, or form giving up on him, and I would hate to.
No, yeah.
I just, man, I really do think that if he can return to the form that we think he can, right, his progression does fall in line with the way this team is looking rebuild-wise, because goalies take a little bit. Right. Goalies take a little bit longer. So, like, when he hits 30, he could just be entering his prime.
Right. I think But like different organizations have different philosophies on goalies too, right? Where it's like we will only spend X amount of dollars on a goalie because we'll do the 1A, 1B thing. Like I will never give a goalie a $10 million contract, right? Or like something like that, where it's like the Flyers might feel that Carter Hart might ask for a price that the team just isn't willing to shell out for a goaltender.
Right. And that's where I think the negotiations need to take, well, if they can take place right now.
I think technically they can. Yeah.
They can. Yeah. I mean, with
like
with
just
Urson,
the NHL.
But
stuff.
with the investigation thing, like, I don't know if the team is willing to. Like, Hart and his camp might, and they want to get locked up, which can't fault them for it.
Right.
But, like, if we discount the Hockey Canada investigation, and that's not going on, like, Hart would be smart to start talking now.
Right.
Just so that the Flyers have an idea of where he stands, just so that Hart knows where the Flyers stand. So that way, when we get to the trade deadline this upcoming season, if it's looking increasingly like he's not going to be a part of this team and the price doesn't fall in the range in which the Flyers think it should, boom, you work a deal for him because, like you said and alluded to, there could be the groundwork for that deal already laid out, ready to go. It's just a matter of pulling the trigger at the right time.
Because we have time. So he's making $3.9 million and extra, right, this season. What do you realistically see like his next payday looking like? I mean, let's just think that he is similar to what he was last season, maybe a bit better.
I could see him wanting 6.
Yeah.
And I don't agree.
Right.
You know, if he comes out like gangbusters and like has a Vezina caliber season, okay, we'll talk. Like, we'll consider that. If he comes out and just shows more of the same, though, I'm putting a cap at like 4.5.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going a penny over that.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, oh, I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, you're good. You're good.
Well, I think too, like the Flyers are looking like we don't need you. We don't need your caliber of goaltending right now, too. Where it's like we're not going to pay $6 million for 2 years. We don't expect to be very good when we have promising goalies like Urson and Kolosov in the wings, where
that weighs heavily too.
Yeah,
I mean, considering the quality of those guys.
I think I think if you take away the Hockey Canada thing, which you can't, but like.
Right. If you try to.
If you try to, like, I do think that Carter Hart's next contract just plays a big part in this.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a little skeptic on the team and Carter Hart's long-term relationship.
Yeah. I can't help but feel like he's been slighted a bit, though. Like, given the defense that they put in front of him, like that it's unfortunate. You can't fully discount it because some of that play is on him, absolutely. But like, you're looking at guys like Brandon Manning, as much as we love him and stick up for him, like Bobby Haig, I
think you were saying that about Brandon Manning. I'm like, God, don't do that.
I know. No, yeah, but like Keith Yandel, prime example.
Right.
Like just guys that are not good at defense. that they're putting in front of him, expecting him to stop pucks, block shots, and defend.
Right.
When that's not what they're doing. Like, they're not good at it. And they're expecting Hart to just make up for the other defensive deficiencies. It's not fair to him, but it's also not completely unfair, if that makes sense.
Well, all right. I mean, I think like let's pencil him in as of right now, he's with the Flyers. He's obviously going to be the starting goalie if he's with the Flyers this coming season.
Right.
I think after that, the goalie depth chart is a little interesting.
Yeah.
Like, who's opening the season as the backup to you?
I think it's Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how. Well, you could justify putting a guy like him on waivers, sending him down, but then you still have some dead cap. Like, you're not that $5 million.
Save a ton of
Right. You're still paying a majority, if not all of that $5 million. Right. So, like, then what are your choices? Urson and Sandstrom. I know my choice between those two. Obviously. I'm sure a lot of people, even everybody listening right now, is going to pick Urson over Sandstrom.
Right.
So then you're looking at a tandem of Hart and Urson. But how much work do you want Urson to get in? Do you
Right.
want him to carry the load, whether it's for the Phantoms, the Flyers? He likely won't carry the load for the
Right.
Flyers. So then AHL, you're basing it off of skill, whereas you want these guys to progress. How are they going to progress in backup roles where they're playing at most 1B to a 1A?
Well, I think that there's a case to be made for both Urson and Peterson to start in the AHL. I think obviously for Urson, it's workload, right? Peterson, it's confidence.
Right.
You know, this is a guy who's clearly lost all confidence. Like, allow him to build it up a little bit in the AHL. But I also feel like if you start Peterson in the AHL and Urson is doing fine as the backup, like, are you really going to do the old switcheroo? Because the last thing you want to do is shatter Urson's confidence. Where the logical thing is just to put Peterson as the backup and have Urson start in Lehigh.
Right.
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And hope that Peterson plays really well and kind of creates some sort of value.
Right. Because, like, ultimately, it sounds kind of bad. Like, Peterson was a throw-in for that Provorov deal to make the money work.
Right.
And we got a reclamation project. Surprise, surprise.
An expensive one.
A very expensive reclamation project. He's making more than the starting goalie right now.
Right.
If he works out, fantastic. Not going to keep him around just because he's going to want, if he wants more than $5 million, absolutely not. You know, but if he works out to a point where you get to the 2024-2025 season and he's a very quality backup goalie, you trade him, flip him for a return, you know, and right there, the Provorov trade tree grows and it looks even better than it did before.
Right.
But, like, let's talk about Sandstrom for a second.
Okay.
Odd man out to you?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. There's no shot to me. Like, I feel kind of bad.
For sure.
But yeah, I think his time has passed. I mean, you have Peterson ahead of him just because of the financial commitment, in my mind.
Right.
Urson is ahead of him just because I think you see a brighter future with him.
100%.
Where it's like now you're looking at backup at Lehigh Valley. I mean, and, you know, when you're backing up at Lehigh Valley, you're more sharing the load. It's, you know, it's not as, you know, like one guy gets the heavy amount. You know, it's usually like split between the weekend, if you will.
Yeah, like 35 games, 35, 40, whatever it might be.
But I don't know. I mean, at this point, it's like you're just seeing if there's a team out there that's desperate for goalies that like would kick you a fourth round pick or something for him. Like, I just don't see it with him.
Yeah. Now, he's the type of guy, like, I don't think he's a trade chip come deadline because they're going to need him unless they can get something in another deal or even sign a backup for Lehigh Valley. I mean, I'm sure you could find one, but like the value, you're not going to get the value. It just sucks. Like, I mean, I like the guy. I thought he was good, but.
And I do think that there's a situation where if you look at it like this, like, okay, so Carter Hart gets hurt. Okay. You have Peterson become your starting goalie. Maybe you don't want Urson to be his backup because you still want him to have his workload. You can feel confident enough having Sandstrom be Peterson's backup while Carter Hart was on the men. Like, I could see that kind of situation. Yeah,
I could totally see it. Like, Sandstrom could back up Hart. Like, it's not ideal, you know. Peterson, I think, is better suited. And honestly, I think Urson's better suited than both of them. However, you know, given the fact that you're going to want Urson to grow and get a workload similar to what he could potentially get in the NHL if he's a starter, it's best suited, I think, from an organizational standpoint, to keep him in Lehigh Valley, have Peterson back up, and then Sandstrom and Urson are, you know, the 1A, 1B, with Urson getting the 1A minutes and starts.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it makes the most sense to me too. And it's like, I think perfect scenario, at least in my mind, Sam Urson does enough to show that he's going to either be like a 1B or 1A next year. Cal Peterson does enough to show that he could be a 1A, 1B next year. Carter Hart has a good season and you trade him high.
Yep.
You
Hate
know,
to say it, but
yeah, people, like, you know, especially Grandmaster Flyers Daily would get very upset with me, but like, and I get it, but I just like, I think that like considering where the organization is, to me, like that would be your ideal scenario. Either that or
Right.
all of a sudden Carter Hart turns into Marty Brodeur and you're like, okay,
can't trade him.
yeah.
Yeah. Now throwing a wrench into all of this. Ivan
Russian
Fedotov,
wrench.
the Russian wrench. There's your title of the episode. Ivan Fedotov and the situation currently unfolding with that. The IIHF now has stepped in and they're talking about how the contract has been told and it needs to be recognized as such, meaning a valid contract with an NHL team. Personally, I think nothing comes of this. I don't think the IIHF cares. I don't think the KHL cares. I certainly don't think the KHL cares. Not to mention the fact that if it were any other KHL team aside from the military team, this would be a non-factor. He'd be coming over to the NHL.
Right.
Because it is a state team, essentially. It is the Russian military hockey team.
Owned by Putin.
Exactly. Like, you think they're going to want to let their starting goalie go, who just basically, you know, is the best goalie in the league at this point.
Right. And you cannot forget whether or not you agree with it or not. He dodged his military service. They are making an example out of him.
Right.
Like,
they are.
You know, it's not like every other player, you know, this has nothing to do with Matvei Michkov. Like,
yeah.
To me, you have a better chance having a unicorn leprechaun crossbreed doing the Dougie in the middle of the Wells Fargo Center than you have Ivan Fedotov showing up in North America.
I've seen Gritty do some pretty crazy things, man. Let's not discount that. But you are right. I think that dodging your military duty in a country in which it is mandatory, it's a big no-no.
And you're play for the military team.
Right. And then to show you that you screwed up, they send you to like the northernmost point in the country. Yeah, that too. They poisoned the man and then sent him to the northernmost point in Russia, which was, I'm sure, frigid. So it wasn't fun. He even said
the southernmost point in Russia is frigid.
That too. But like he even said it when doing the interview. He's like, you don't keep track of the days, like you just count them down. Like that's military service in Russia. Like that right there says all you need to know. He doesn't want to be there, but he has to be.
Right.
And the military service is up. There's nothing tying him to military service anymore. However, the 2-year contract now with KHL versus the 1-year told contract that he has with the NHL, I'm losing hope.
And I think, honestly, man, if this is any other situation, any other player, it's like, well, he signed the NHL contract before he signed the KHL contract. He's got to go to the NHL to at least, you know, respect that
Simple
obligation.
As that. Yep. If Matvei Michkov signs his NHL contract tomorrow, boom, they have to recognize it, and guess what? He's a Flyer.
Well, no, because he's
yeah,
contractually obligated already to.
Hypothetically, if Matvei Michkov has no contract with a KHL team, but signs his contract with the Flyers tomorrow, he's coming over to North America to play hockey in the NHL.
Yes.
But yeah, with just everything all encompassed here, it is a mess that I'm one of those guys that I was like, man, I'm holding out hope. But now I'm just like, whatever. I don't care anymore.
At this point too, like, do you really need something else messing this up even more? Like, you've already got a pretty strenuous situation at goalie where it's like you could arguably have 2-3 people being the backup trying to figure out who should go where. It's like you throw Ivan Fedotov into the mix. To me, he starts in the AHL, but then it's like, well, then what the hell do you do with Urson? Well, what the hell do you do with Peterson? Yeah. Hey, guess what? Sandstrom sucks, but you're going to Reading.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, Sandstrom goes to Reading, like, first and foremost, and that's unfortunate. But hey, It's the numbers game. If Fedotov comes over, I don't think you necessarily make him a priority over Urson, but you 100% need to see what that guy's got in the NHL.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, he's got to get some starts in the AHL with the Phantoms, and who knows, man? If he just completely blows the doors off the place and is better than Urson, he jumps him. No questions asked. I want the better goalie in the position in which he's going to succeed. If that means he's better than Urson and deserves NHL minutes, give them to him. Right. Sorry, Peterson, you're in the AHL too now. It's you and Urson, and it's Hart and Fedotov.
He's making $5 million. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah, he'd be like, "Oh, sure. You just let me know when I need to be there."
Right.
But yeah,
most hockey players, and I'll say most because there's Evander Kane and everything, but most hockey players seem like smart spenders to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, was it?
They go and buy a cottage.
Was it Jack Johnson, the guy whose parents robbed them of everything, or who's the defenseman?
No, yeah. I don't know which Johnson, but
it's Jack Johnson.
Jack Johnson.
Columbus. Then he played with a bunch of different teams, and his parents
banana pancakes.
Yeah, broke banana. Jesus Christ.
Like a ukulele. Mama had a baby.
I had a roommate in college that played guitar, and awesome guy. To this day, I still think he's a great guy. But that dude knew nothing but Jack Johnson on the guitar, and it drove me nuts.
I have a buddy that every year, Jack Johnson's going to Jones Beach. Anybody want to come? And everybody, no. Talk about the most boring freaking concert on the planet, man.
Right. They'll be like, no, that guy should be playing at a coffee house for 3 people.
But it's funny, though, that you bring up college and people with acoustic guitars, because for me, everybody who had an acoustic guitar played Dispatch. It was like you'd walk down the hallway and I have seen the others and I have discovered this fight is not worth fighting. 2 more doors down. Take a shower, shine your shoe.
Just a nice little ensemble.
Just everybody loving Dispatch.
Through the hallway.
Right.
Our freshman year, it was all freshmen in our freshman dorm, and it was like a complete
how that
mix.
works.
We had our jocks, we had the stoners, and then the kids that were getting high on shrooms on a Friday night, locking himself in his room in nothing but the dark with headphones on.
It's
had to go check
that you describe yourself so graphically.
Oh no, I was the one that was sitting in my dorm room getting drunk, waiting until 10 o'clock so we can go out to the parties. Also the kid that would invite his RA into the room to drink with him. So had a blast doing that.
Wild child, Derek Bob.
I had my fun. I'm not gonna lie. But getting back on track here to the goalie
how did we
talk.
get to this? Jack Johnson, right?
Jack Johnson. That's right. Your point about being fiscally responsible in the NHL.
Yes.
I think you're right. Because of all the sports too, the NHL, the highest earning player right now is making a fraction of the highest paid player in the world, no matter the sport. So they have to be. They absolutely have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be able to understand that a little bit more when I win my Mega Millions or whatever tomorrow.
That must be nice.
Dude, it's
Billy for my time on the show.
New York Mega Millions. It's I think it's $1.5 billion right now.
$1.5 billion?
Yeah. I think you walk away with $750 million because they destroy you in taxes.
Right. Yeah. And then everybody finds out it was you, and they're like, "Hey, John, I'm your long lost uncle." Okay, cool.
You better wait in line with my long lost mother. All right. Anyway.
All right. Let's see. Yeah, let's get back to the Flyers talk. So it is kind of old news. We got a little bit of time to talk about it.
Sure.
Not going to go crazy, but Cutter Gauthier, there was an interview done with Cutter in regards to his decision and not being in developmental camp. He is taking the stance in which he's just played a lot of hockey and didn't think that this would be best suited for him. He wanted to spend time with his family. You could tell from the quotes that come out in regards to the Flyers and where Danny Briere and everybody with the organization stands, they're a little disappointed, which I can side with them on that a little bit.
Right.
But I guess
not going to development camp.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Give me your take, because I know we talked about this before the show. in regards to just the decision to be made. Like, I guess my stance on it, like, I get where he's coming from. It is a lot of hockey to play for a kid, but like, I can't help but feel that there's an obligation on his end, on Gautier's end, where you were drafted at 5th overall, and I'm not going to sit here and say you're like the savior of the franchise by any means.
Right.
But you're pegged to be a pretty integral part of the franchise moving forward.
Right.
Like, there's a little bit of responsibility that comes with that. And like, in my mind, I'm leaning kind of towards like he should have been in developmental camp. And you can argue like, oh, he had to pay his way. Like, spare me that bullshit.
Right.
Hockey players come from wealthy families. Let's be honest.
Not all of them, Jesus.
Not all.
Remember, we're trying to save our image after Hoagie went and did that thing. Come on.
Whatever. Last thing I'm concerned about is what they think of us. But regardless, even like your agent, I mean, there's instances in which your agent can front you that money for the hotel, for food, whatever it might be, and you pay him back. Because let's be honest, Gauthier is going to get a decent contract. He'll get the rookie max, I'm sure, at $925K. You'll be able to pay that back in your first paycheck. So I am a little disappointed, but being a family guy, I'm sure you can relate as well. Like, I get it. You want to be with your family in the time that you...
Being a family guy, I would do anything to spend some time at developmental camp.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, in our position with kids and a wife, sure. Like, Danny B called me up. It's like, Derek, we need you here.
Sure, I'll put the pads on.
I'll drive there myself.
Right.
But I don't know. Like, where do you stand on all this?
Well, I don't think that it... I think that whole narrative of he doesn't want to be a Flyer is crap. I don't buy any of that. I look at it like this. I think that Gauthier made a decision, most likely with influences, whether it be family, agent, kind of talking him into a, hey, like, you've played this, and this, and then you got to go and you got to play this. Like, don't you think like your development would be better to play in these game situations as opposed to developmental camp? And by the way, we'd have to pay for it. Like, I do think that like there were probably influences that that kind of swayed him to make that decision.
Sure. Where
he might then go, damn it. Like, I turned out not to be the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I could see that, but I don't think it has anything to do with like not wanting to be a Flyer. I just think this is a young kid who made a decision.
Right.
And it's probably a far bigger decision that any of us had to make at that age. So, so I don't know. And in terms of like, does it affect his development or anything? Like, no, he's probably getting more of a better experience away from developmental camp, playing in all these tournaments and such.
And borderline dominating those tournaments as well. I mean, it's not like he's going there to be a role player. Like, he's one of the guys in those tournaments and for his team.
Right. But again, like you said, there needs to be consideration with the optics.
Sure.
Right. There needs to be like, okay, as a 5th overall pick, this team is counting on me to be a future pillar. My face needs to be seen at developmental camp.
Right. Like, Travis brought up a good point on high and wide. Like, Cam York was part of 3.
Right.
3 developmental camps. So, like, where I don't think York is at the level Gauthier isn't supposed to be, the guy. He still made it to 3, and
right.
according to the rules, paid his way for 2.
Right.
So, like, that's kind of maybe the lingering standard, if you will, in which they probably base this off of. But again, his decision, he made it. He's got to live with it. And I'm sure once that ELC is signed, everything's going to be all hunky-dory and everything's going to be good.
Right.
And we'll be all right.
And you just have to remember that we're dealing with a slow news time in hockey.
Right.
In a social media world where everything is captured and blown out of proportion. You know?
Everybody's going to nitpick it.
If this was the 80s, we wouldn't have even known.
Right. They'd have just been like, oh, man, I don't see Gauthier out there. I wonder what he's up to.
He's getting drunk in the parking lot.
Right. Now it's, oh, my God. He's not I don't know. I can't draw a comparison. Regardless, we're 45 minutes in. This episode went a hell of a lot faster than I thought. Honestly, not really much else to talk about.
No.
I think Michkov doing all right in preseason as expected.
I'm intrigued by the center thing.
I am very much so, actually.
You know, I think that's great that he's playing center.
Yeah.
Unless it takes away from his goal scoring.
Yeah.
I don't need him to be a distributor. So
no. Don't need him to be a distributor. Don't need him to be a sound two-way player.
Right.
I want him scoring goals. That's it.
And if that's on the wing, then Jesus, put him back on the wing. But it is nice to see that they're putting him at center because obviously center is a more important position than winger.
It is. It is.
And I'd rather drop $15 million a year on a center than a winger.
Right. Because, I mean, presumably by the time he gets over here, you're probably not going to have Scott Lawton. Noah Cates will still be with the team. I'm sure they're going to lock him up after his 2-year deal here. Frost, who the hell knows? Coling, I'm not going to expect him to be around very long.
Right. Gauthier doesn't want to be a flyer.
Right. And I mean, there's the possibility of Forrester potentially because he is listed as playing center, but he's going to be a wing. Yeah. I mean, there's still time we could see, but regardless, I mean, aside from that, Christ, man, Denoye, John Randall, Avon.
We need some centers and defensemen. Yeah. Maybe Michkov can play D too. We could just roll.
Nope.
No, okay.
No, we had our chance at Erik Karlsson. He went to the Penguins and he can plague them now. I don't care.
Yeah, what do you think of that?
Whatever. Don't care.
I mean, it doesn't even upset me.
An old team gets older, and he's going to put up 100 points for him, and they're still going to get booted out in the second round of the playoffs.
It doesn't make him a Stanley Cup contender in my mind.
They gave up a hell of a haul for him too.
Did they?
It was a decent. It was a decent haul.
Thing, you know.
Yeah, you get the Habs.
And they've given up every draft pick. I think that's like. Dude, when are you going to realize maybe you got to start acquiring assets?
It was, I couldn't even tell you, man. Like, it was at this point right now, I'm trying to find the graphic here with the actual. So, Pittsburgh got Erik Karlsson, Rem Pitlick, Dylan Hamaliuk, and a 3rd-round pick in 2026 from San Jose. But in the meantime, they gave up their 2024 first, Granlund, Jan Ruda, the defenseman, as well as a 2025 2nd-round pick to Montreal, Jeff Petrie to Montreal, Casey DeSmith, and Nathan Legary, all to Montreal. So they gave up 5 players.
And 2 picks.
And Mike Hoffman goes to San Jose in regards to that as well as
Mike Hoffman.
Who else?
Not to be confused with my buddy Matt Hoffman.
Yeah, the BMX guy.
Yes.
There you go, man.
Remember when we had those, when we were talking about Hoffman being on the Flyers and I kept calling him Matt?
I do remember that.
He looks like a Matt to me.
Yeah. Mike, Matt, whatever. He scores goals too.
Does he still?
I don't know if he still does. I know he did.
I mean,
used to.
Yeah.
Might still. Regardless, yes. John and I were talking about this through text message during the episode here. What we're going to look to do next week, we'd like to field some questions on Twitter, but most importantly, for those of you listening, if you're able to tune in during our live show, which is going to be 8 p.m. Monday night, log on. You can comment through Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, whatever.
Night.
Oh, you can't do Monday night?
It's Laney's birthday.
What's more important, John?
Oh, I know.
I knew you before Laney knew you.
I know. Oh, don't do this to me right now.
We'll talk after the episode.
Yeah. We'll put it on Twitter when exactly we're going to have the...
It'll probably be
on X.
It's X. That's right. I'm sorry. X. My apologies, Elon. You're ruining Twitter, you dick.
Well, he's not ruining Twitter.
You're ruining X. You're ruining X, you dick. Regardless, probably let's say Tuesday night to be fair.
Sure.
Right.
Tuesday night to be fair.
Yeah, Tuesday night. I'll get home from soccer with the kid after he, watches the airplanes in the sky instead of kicking the ball.
For you.
Yeah, but be on the live stream because we will answer live questions as well. That'll be a good way to interact with people. And again, It's the doldrums of the off season. There's not much happening. We're diving way too deep into things that don't deserve to be dove in that deep. Too many D words there. Alliteration for you. Here you go, Chuck. So yeah, join the live show. We'll have some answers for your questions. Might be all four of us. We'll see if Matt Casey's back from his vacation. If Hoagie
He's
can
not on another one.
Right. If Hoagie can fend off the plague for a night, we'll see. We'll have the full cast here. So
there you go.
Join live. We'll put out the tweets or the Xeets or whatever. I don't know what they are anymore. Who cares? We'll put out the messages. You put the questions and respond with them. So we'll have some fun with it.
All right.
All right, fellas. Well, any use in letting everybody know where they're going to be able to find us?
I mean, well, you can find us at Pod Street Bullies, Pod ST Bullies on X.
On X. Yeah, on X, not Twitter. It's X.
Pod Street Bullies on X. Now, that's a show I tune in for.
Oh, boy. I got to take a second to wrap my head around that. But before I do, yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm on X at Pod Street Bob. John's on X. John's not on X.
No, I've liberated myself from social media, my friend.
You flip-flop between deleting your Twitter more than
But this time it's for good.
What was the guy's name that flipped between the AHL and the NHL? Justin Bailey. Yeah. You're on and off Twitter more than he was the Phantoms.
But now I'm off because I can't hang with the $11.99 a month to follow past five people or whatever it is.
You don't have to pay for it.
I'm off it.
Yeah. John's off of it. I'm off of it too. We're off the show. Folks, until next week when we've got some questions to answer, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, bye now.